What's up, Fortnite? It's the one and many StickyBasket. And scene. I've been thinking about my consumption of media lately, and I seem to have a bit of a commitment problem. So I thought it would be good to reflect on the things I've been watching and reading, to place them on the patented 13-point scale, and to remind myself to finish what I've started. And scene. I don't watch many shows, and I've had reasonable success in finishing movies I've started. We've recently rewatched Season 1 of the Apothecary Diaries and have dipped into Season 2. The anime is an interesting period piece that is upfront with the damning social structures of the time. Most characters stand distinct of each other, making each memorable and largely enjoyable each time they pop up. The attention to the lead truly being an apothecary is a delight, teaching the viewer and unlearned characters more about medicines, poisons, and illnesses. Also, unlike a certain school for superpowered youth, time actually advances, which is an essential and truly great part of the storytelling, as you are able to experience the natural flow of events in the condensed state of an episodic series without the haunting realization that only 3 months have passed. 9 out of 13. I deeply enjoyed the melancholy bounce of mortality and distinct representations of love expressed in Season 1 of the Ancient Magus Bride. Or is it Ancient Magus Bride? Guess it depends on you. The world can seem so big and so small so quickly, but the anime does well with this duality without causing shock or confusion. Each setting feels deeply lived in, regardless of how long our lead has been there herself, making the world building quite enjoyable. We have watched some of Season 2, but I don't remember finishing it, which is a disappointment on my part. The wide expanse of the world has been condensed tightly into one major location, which, too, is a disappointment. But the addition of new characters and continued world-building efforts might be enough to placate my wants in that area. Despite all that I enjoy here, the tale can be easily told with an older lead without hurting the story, as any pang of realization that the lead is very much a minor veils the budding and blossoming romance she has with the mage in a film of muck, regardless of his deeply undeveloped social and cultural maturity with respect to humanity. 8 out of 13. I'm typically at my worst about watching live action shows, and Westworld was no exception. In university, my friends and I would meet up each week to watch the newest episode, quietly disregarding the wonderful plethora of breasts, butts, and schlongs that dotted the stories unfolding in front of us. It was enjoyable teasing out the details of each event, and dubious in who to root for in the complicated developments. The robots were clearly right to fight back. But it's been years. I've never seen Season 2, and Season 3 doesn't look like anything to me. Also, it was published by HBO, and fuck that David guy. The only good thing WB has published lately that I can remember at this moment and have seen is Mickey 17, and that movie didn't commit to the obvious lesbian relationship two characters had and made one of those characters appear like a touchstar of the Jezebel. 6 out of 13. And scene. Truly, I'm not one to engage in most tomes. I can name the novels I've finished reading without far exceeding my fingers, and it is just a few more on top of those that I have chosen to begin without finishing. Web comics have been more attainable for my attention, but I am still inconsistent with my reading and continue to add many works to a bookmark folder to log which ones I want to read. Now, I don't lack the mental capacity for imagination while reading purely written works, but I love seeing exactly what the authors see when they tell their story. And their ability to still add room for interpretation at times is impressive. I can also find myself more forgiving for errors in spelling, grammar, and syntax in comics than I am with novels, where I find the precise execution of the language to be an element in the storytelling itself, so faults in that execution unfortunately hurt my engagement. And, of course, grade school formed a foundation in novel reading as a chore, rather than a delight, a plague of the mind from which I hope to heal. One book that I am reading is Shadow Puppets by Orson Scott Card. The Ender Saga is one of Petra's favorites from her youth, with the audiobooks having been their primary form of consumption. I've read the original Ender Quartet, with Speaker for the Dead resting as an easy 9 out of 13 in memory. This book is the third in the sequel Shadow series that begins with an alternative POV for the first book and continues its story in that POV instead of skipping like 3,000 years into the future, which offers a greater look into the events on Earth itself that we only get touches of with Ender. It's been maybe 2 years since I've really given an effort to this current book, and it's not necessarily due to poor writing. There is a truly strange obsession written into the book that a man's purpose is to propagate his seed by the main character, and it comes across as forced agenda speech by Orson instead of a take that's natural to the character allegedly carrying those beliefs. Which shouldn't be too unbelievable since Orson has been cited as terribly homophobic and very much a racist. It's nice that these books are quite aged in our collection. While my fatigue with reading these works is likely also attributed to having spent too much time reading in one universe, slamming against my internal blockers for binge-consuming media, political intrigue, and prolonged machinations with an enemy that seems more powerful than he should be, may just not be a liked flavor for me. 5 out of 13. I follow a healthy amount, well over 100, series on webtoons and tapas, with webtoons specifically helping revitalize a desire to read comics. While I pretty much exclusively read independent comics on tapas, there is a fair number of officially published works on webtoons that I read. It's truly difficult to choose just one to highlight here, for I have many that I have instrumented my own form of hiatus in regards to reading, but I must. One that I think of fondly yet have failed time and time again to read is Covenant by Explodekid, Lysandra Vong. The character art and action sequences are truly beautiful, and certainly accentuated by the use of intricate tattoos as conduits, sources of power. The art is truly immaculate, and the story I've experienced so far seems willing to match. Now I've only read 4 of the 90 uploads, which is truly a tragedy with the praise I've offered so far. Although its run has ended on webtoons for the sake of the author's health, all too common due to the business model webtoons runs, and I'm truly glad that Lysandra got the opportunity to step away. The story is likely to continue in some capacity in the future, for which I am hopeful and appreciative. 9 out of 13. I mentioned earlier that I have a bookmarks folder chock full of wonderful works, both ones independently supported and others supported through networks like Hiveworks or Slipshine. While not as stupidly vast as my subscription lists on webtoons and tapas, there are still many here on which I fail to regularly keep up to date, and one such comic is Transfusions by Annie K. This comic explores sexual orientation, interpersonal relationships, and vampiric daddy issues in such a delightful way, with steady character development and careful attention to the impact that sex can have on that development. Shit hits the fan, robbing us and the author alike from the happy good feels of the two leads being in love. While I am only a chapter and a half behind from being caught up, it has been months since I have read any of this truly great comic. Annie has come across as a great person, and her other comics, including The Witch Door, is another awesome bop. Shit, I gotta catch up on that one too. My soft demi-boy heart is gonna get its ass kicked for sure. 10 out of 13. And scene. Creating a handsome Squidward is truly an art, and sometimes art is messy and unrefined. The character creator in Dark Souls is genuinely enjoyable, but I find it notably limited in its ability to enable a strong facsimile of Mr. Tentacles. The automatic shifting of some sliders based on the modifications of one slider is certainly useful in better ensuring a more cohesive face, but it led me to going back and forth between options, attempting to perfect the balance I was forced to strike. While the chin, jaw, and cheeks were largely on point, the nose is far from perfect, particularly due to the slider's competing interests and the inability to strike the ideal pose with the bridge. However, I am more happy than disappointed with the skin color. Even though the competing sliders gave a challenge in making a good color, the fact that I could even attempt the ideal color places this character creator above so many others. In all consideration, this is a rather decent, even acceptable, handsome Squidward. Additionally, I think he looks pretty good with his humanity lost, which would naturally be his common state during a playthrough, boosting the score for this creation. 8 out of 13.
Yes, indeed. This is your fate.
And scene.